Ah yes, the suspension style pistol squat. One of the classic leg exercises on suspension straps. And today I'm going to be showing you my top tips on how you can get the most bang for the buck out of this classic exercise. The suspension strap pistol works as a progressive exercise because you're basically adjusting how much weight you have on your squatting leg versus your hands. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they put way too much backward motion, and as a result, most of my weight is here and there's very little weight on my legs. So when people often say, oh, this is so easy, I could do this all the time, that's because you're almost turning it into more of an upper body exercise and my lower body's barely doing anything. And I know one of the common concerns with this is, well, don't let your knees go over your toes, keep your knees bent 90 degrees sort of thing, less stress on the knees. And to a degree, this is correct, but for the wrong reasons. So the big myth is that it's about the position of the knee relative to the toes, which sort of is true, but it's actually not where the knee is. It's the degree of flexion in your knee relative to the degree of flexion in your ankle and your hips. So basically, if you have too much here, but not enough in the other two, then that's where a lot of that stress on the knee comes from. So when we do this, the angle at my ankle, knee, and hip is roughly the same, therefore keeping the force balanced. But that puts too much weight on the hands, which kind of negates the whole purpose of the exercise. When we have the weight primarily on the foot, we need a lot more forward motion in the knee, which is understandably nerve-wracking, but perfectly safe as long as we've got flexion in the hip here and in the ankle. And a lot of people say, well, how do I improve that? Well, a lot of it is just literally trying to do this with getting that motion and being mindful of the flexion of all three joints. So instead of falling back, we're now finally squatting, and I have less and less weight on my hands, and it's there just for assistance rather than the primary force of the exercise. The other point to consider is keeping the hips level and front facing. One of the most common issues with single leg work in general is the tilting pelvis. And this is often due to a weakness in the hip. So when we do our single leg work, we want to feel like we're kind of sitting into this hip a little bit, which will place the foot of your squatting leg closer onto your center line. And that allows things to be nice and level. If you don't have it, you end up with this sort of thing where the leg is shooting out to the side. Again, the knee kind of goes out to the side like this, more stress on the knees, and it's just really hodgepodge wibble wobble. So keeping things in close and tight ensures that there's more force going right into the muscles, less in the joints, and there's a lot more stability too. So those 2 points should take care of most of the issues that people run into with this exercise. But keep in mind overall that the objective of suspension pistol squats is to actually use the straps as little as possible. So start off with 2 hands, like so. That'll give you the most control. And then progress to using 1 strap. Usually it's done on the reverse side of the squatting leg. And we're trying to minimize the pull. You can do this with having less of a grip. Sometimes people just use a couple fingers in the foot sling, and that way they don't have nearly as much force going through the strap, and it's mostly in the leg. And finally, one more advantage of using the suspension straps is it makes weighted pistol squats a lot more accessible and efficient, so you're not worrying too much about all that stability. Now, the classic pistol squat is often done with weight holding out in front, and it's usually a lot of hinging, a lot of load on the lower back, a lot of people leaning forward. We want instead our weight to be as close to our torso as possible, which makes it much more difficult, but also much better for your alignment. So keeping a dumbbell, kettlebell, weight vest, whatever you like, nice and close, and now we can use the strap to assist if we get into trouble with this. And again, trying to use the strap only as needed. And now we can make these a lot heavier and more controlled to really work the legs. And I know calisthenics leg training can sometimes be a frustrating ordeal sometimes, but I hope these tips can really help you bring your training to the next level. I left a simple little workout program down below in the description. Leave any thoughts or questions you have down below as well. Thank you very much for watching. Be fit and live free.